Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, created and hosted by Scott Knudsen, to explore the crossroads of horses and business. Now here's your host, Scott Knudsen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA, the NBC affiliate out in California. And thank you so much for listening to us on KCAA and also watching our podcast on so many platforms. We really appreciate you watching and listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Today, we have a show that's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Clay Maier is on the show, and he has a bio like no other. He's a saddle bronc rider. He's a Liberty rider. He's a long rein authority. He's a carriage driver, and he's a pioneer in the equine business model of the DVDs and the clinics. And he started it, and he's helped all of us get along down the road for sure. Plus, he's been all over the world. There's going to be some great stories, some good business insight, and just a lot of fun. So, Clay, thank you so much for being on the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show.
Well, it's awesome to be here, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Man, I love your background. That is just beautiful.
It's unique.
Oh, my goodness. So where do you call home?
Well, currently, oddly enough, I live in Mexico. And I've only lived there, maybe 6 months, but I was training horses every day, and I thought, well, I really don't need to do this every single day. I think I would like to just do maybe 5 or 6 clinics a year. And so I thought, well, where do I want to live, full time? And so I thought, well, I like living out of the country because I've traveled a lot overseas and did equestrian events overseas. And I thought, well, I'm going to go down to Mexico and see. I knew Vicente Fernandez, who just recently passed away, and he's a Mexican entertainer, performer. He's been a family friend for a long time, and they have a fabulous horse park of their own. And I thought, well, I can always go to Vicente's place, kind of do some horse things. So I moved down to Lake Chapala. And I think a lot of listeners out there have probably heard of Lake Chapala. Right. A lot of Americans go down there, and it's 15 minutes from Vicente's place. But so anyhow, I've been down in Mexico for about 6 months. I don't know if I'll be there forever, but I'm sure enjoying it right now.
That is awesome, man. That is so cool. The sky is absolutely beautiful.
Well, I'm not in Mexico at the moment.
Right. Yeah, I understand, but your background is so cool.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm at my brother's place here in Central California, and he's kind of a collector of Western memorabilia. And there's old stagecoaches, chuck wagons, and things all sitting around here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I saw a cool picture of you, Clay, a rodeo team picture, a college rodeo. And you were a saddle bronc rider, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Back in the 70s. I went to college rodeos from 72 through 76. And I was fortunate enough out here in the West Coast Division, Fresno State and Cal Poly at San Luis Obispo were big powerhouse, rodeo teams. And so I got on the team at Fresno State, and I spent a couple of great years with a bunch of great guys. And I rode saddle broncs. I steer wrestled and rode bulls too. Neither one of them were not my event, but we all steer wrestled because we had some guys that really knew how to coach us up,
Gotcha.
So I did a little steer wrestling, and I would get on a bull, but saddle bronc was my event. And I ended up third in the nation in 1975. So I was third in the nation there. So
it's a big accomplishment.
Well, I sure enjoyed it. I wished I could just stay at that age and done that forever, but then I'd have missed out on all the other good things.
Oh yeah, you lived such a great life, and you just keep getting more and more stories. And so take somebody back on the college rodeo team. You remember a fun story or something back in the rodeo days on the college team? Because you had a lot of characters on the team.
Okay, well, I got a character that pretty much everybody knows is Pat Pirelli. Pat Pirelli was on our rodeo team. And I have a funny story about Pat.
Okay.
And I've told this story. Pat knows the story. And the rodeo is over, and we're in Arizona somewhere, and Pat has a reride, which is after the rodeo. And so the rest of the Cowboys, we're packing up and getting ready to go, but we're going to rush back over and watch Pat ride his bareback horse. And so Pat comes out of the gate, and that horse just takes off at a dead run. You know, it is not bucking. It's like a racehorse running around this arena, which is very dangerous.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
That's one of the most dangerous things. And Pat has been over with both hands hanging on to his surcingle, and he races by, and 4 or 5 of us team members are sitting on the fence, and he is coming by thundering fast, and he goes by, as he goes by, he goes, he waves at us like that, just to let us know he was okay, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
That's
awesome.
And it's kind of funnier if you were there, but that's a good Pat Pirelli story.
That is great. Yeah, you know, something so dangerous, and he kind of turns it comical, but it is dangerous for sure when they're all out like that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a horse, you know, you're in a very unathletic position, and a horse could duck one way or another. You know, it's no laughing matter, but Pat made it fun for us.
That's cool. That's great story. Great story.
Yeah.
So when you went out, when you graduated and left college, what started the progression to travel the world?
Well, I got involved with Frisian horses, and at the time that I began, there were only 15 Frisians in the United States.
Wow.
And you could do darn near anything with them. You know, they were wonderful carriage horses. And I'd had a background growing up. My dad had us all driving horses as soon as we could keep a grip, you know, with little kids. And so we were, you know, I was driving horses long before the sport of driving became popular. And I lucked into to Frisian horses, and I went off and shown them all everywhere. And they were just jaw-dropping, you know, because they could compete so well, and they were just so beautiful, and they worked so well together, and they had a certain magic that it's just undeniable. When you see Frisian horses doing something well, it's majestic. So we did the driving, and then we thought, well, what can we do to show the Frisian do more things? And a good friend of mine up in Oregon, Judy Knapp, owns some Frisians, and she said, let's think of something that we can do, or we can do an exhibition with these horses, and let's do as many things as we can with them. So we got 2 horses. Well, she had 5 or 6, but I had 2 where I rode one and drove another one in tandem.
Very cool.
And we did high school stuff, you know, like dancing horses where they piaffe and passage and lead changes, tempi changes. We taught them to lay down, sit up, rear up, doing these things. So, you know, we kind of combined driving, we combined dressage, we combined jumping, you know, and a little bit of daredevil stuff. So we choreographed a musical performance, and we were very fortunate to have been able, I've done that on all 4 corners of the United States, from Vancouver to Del Mar to, you know, South Bay to up in Nova Scotia, you know, everywhere, and everywhere in between. We did that show. And so, you know, that took up a big part of my time, was to that. It was a performance that we were A-list, you know, like, you know, if there were 3 or 4 performances out there that you had to have them for your event, and we got in that circle.
Very cool.
And so, yeah, we were very, very fortunate. One of our clients was the Kentucky Horse Park, you know, where they would have us like, hey, whenever you're in our area, come in, stay for a couple of days, stay for a month, whatever. You've got a home here, just do shows, do whatever you want. And then eventually the Kentucky Horse Park said, look, why don't you just do what you do, but just live here, you know? And so I did. And then I ended up working for the Kentucky Horse Park, I became the manager of equine operations at the horse park.
Wow.
And which kind of oversaw the public presentations of horses. And that happened to, just before the World Equestrian Games came in 2010.
Right.
And they were kind of ramping up for that time. And so and with my experience in entertainment, equestrian entertainment, it was something that they wanted to add into their kind of portfolio of things that they could provide. And so I did that, and then I ended up being involved in the World Equestrian Games in 2010. It ended up that there were meetings. This was it's such a big business putting on the World Equestrian Games. I mean, they had big corporate offices where everyone met for a year and a half, just daily. I can't even begin to do it justice of all of the complications of putting an event like that on was. But however, I ended up being in the opening ceremonies, and they had a musical director and a show production person, and there were world class entertainers and singers and dancers and everything that are in these opening ceremonies. But it was my duty to provide the equestrian entertainment. And since I knew everyone, that was the easy part. Okay, guys, look, and these are all personal friends of mine. And that part was a joy. It was a joy to be able to call up a good friend on the phone and say, look, I got to have you come down here. We're going to do that. There's going to be 30,000 people in the audience. And so I got involved in that. And
that's so much fun. It's such a big deal, the World Equestrian Games. But just to be at Kentucky Park, those were so important for that whole region of the United States at that time, and you helped develop that, right? I mean, that was important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The thing is that in Kentucky, and everybody in the state of Kentucky knows that horses are their calling card.
Right.
And they knew a good thing when they saw it, because you see, the Kentucky Horse Park is a state-owned facility, and it's 1,200 acres. There's, I don't know how many hundreds of people work there, and how many horses are involved, and all of that. Well, they began by putting in a world-class outdoor stadium, a world-class indoor arena just for horses. They started adding these types of things to their existence so that it became attractive to the World Equestrian Games.
Right.
Well, pretty soon, a lot of the individual breeds, like the Frisian Horse Association, they put their offices there. And now I don't know how many breed offices are right there, but that grew. And when that happens, pretty soon more horse operations started popping up that were something besides racing. They would go and buy these tobacco farms. These little tobacco farms, because they stopped growing tobacco so much. And these little 15, 20 acre, because there's a funny thing about those tobacco farms. It isn't like, I grew up in California where there's a lot of agriculture. There's big fields and rows. Well, tobacco farms are little jig-jag puzzles, And so they would sell those, and they always would come with a nice tobacco barn, which made a great horse barn. So you just start seeing all these, a lot of people in every discipline of horsemanship moved to the Lexington area.
Wow.
And before long, you had the horse park that's bringing in, like the Robert Murphy Hunter Jumper Show, which is just a mega event. And then there's jumping horses who are just living all around you. They just move into the area. They would, to where they could ride their horses off the facility, bring them in and show them. or, they just had a whole industry grew right there.
Wow. So what was the day like there? Because you were there for 7 or 8 years, I think, is what we were talking about. But what was the day like? Because there's a lot going on all day long, and it seems like it'd be a long day for sure. A fun day.
Well, with me, and I used to always do this. I always like to ride my horses early, and my horses early, and I would be on my horses in Kentucky long before the sun came up, and I had an opportunity to do my horses, and then and before I actually became involved as part of the personnel at the horse park, I'd work my horses, I'd come back, I'd have the stalls clean and fresh, have them washed, put away and everything. And by 10 o'clock, they're ridden, washed, fresh shavings and happy, and later on in the afternoon, I'll turn them out in a turnout, but, for the night. But, I always kind of tried to get that done early. But then as I became involved with the horse park more officially, I would finish that up by around 10. And then I would go to the equine operations offices, and we had 2 daily presentations, that 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, that were open to the public. And I would work out a program for those daily presentations. And then, we would have, different exhibitors come in that are putting on a horse show, and they'll say, gosh, you guys, what have you guys got that you could bring in that we could use for some kind of entertainment for our show tonight, and so we would work and put together a presentation for their particular show, which we did quite a bit of. And then we always had, we did a lot of things with the local kids, and we always had, we would work on once a year, we would do we'd have it in the big new indoor arena, and we'd have the place just packed with kids from all over Kentucky. They're just loaded. And we would do some story. What was the war horse story? That was back 10 years ago. I don't know if there was a World War I horse that they kind of did a movie about, and so we reenacted that story. We reenacted certain Rick Seabiscuit, and his story, and we had old cars, and we had old horse trailers, and we kind of set up a race inside the arena. We would do multiple things, we would be busy on those kinds of things all the time. And that was before the World Equestrian Games. And when that came, that was a game changer.
Everything changed then, didn't it?
Everything changed then, because from then on, you had serious meetings with security people, serious meetings with state, taking and having horses in quarantine, and they wanted to know, okay, when they drive here, what road are they going to go down there? What security guy are they going to see here? And what pin can they use there? And, so details like that, we kind of committed ourselves to it. And then also, not only did we do the opening ceremonies, but we also had every breed and every organization in the United States had the opportunity during those 10 days to come and do a presentation of some sort. And working out those details was incredible. And we would change those every 3 days.
Wow.
And so that was, I think we had I think maybe it was 12 days that the games went on. I don't recall, but it was 3 or 4 times we had to change those, getting those trucks out and bringing those horses in and setting up the environment for them to be most comfortable. And you have to really be a diplomat, because as in the horse industry, people they come there and it's their moment, and they want to be able to look their best. And so it was our job to, facilitate that for And
That's
no,
just so
it was a
cool.
great time, great memory. Met some wonderful people from all over the world that'll be friends forever. Yeah.
Scott will be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Scott Knutson, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Today, we're going to talk about something I'm really passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. Those that don't, now you know I do. And we've been working on this for several months, and we wanted to get it just right. And we don't put our name on anything unless we feel 100% certain it's the best product we can get. And we've done it. I really believe we've done it. We've created a coffee line, 13 great flavors. I'm going to show you 3 of them. We have K-Cups in all 13 flavors. Here's a Jamaican Me Crazy. It's just a really great coffee. Everyone has great logos. It has a brand, the same brand that's on our horses, our trailers. You know that brand means something, and we wouldn't put it on here if it wasn't good coffee. We have whole bean. This is a great Honduran blend, and it's a whole bean coffee. We have whole bean in all 13 flavors. And then we have a ground coffee. This is a really great one. My wife and I really like this a lot, loved it. So we named it after our daughter, Haley's blend. Everyone has the packaging and the logo of the show, our brand, and I hope you like it. I really believe you will. And we're going to have more flavors coming out soon. We're going to have the pumpkin spices, and then we're going to go to peppermint after that. And please send us your suggestions as well. You can find it at cowboyentrepreneur.shop. Think coffee shop. Cowboyentrepreneur.shop. Thank you so much.
Hey, I want to go back to Frisians real quick. So so there was only 14 or 15, I think you said, in the country, and you were training or working with 8 or 9 of them.
There were 15 in the country. I was training 9 of them. And
so when you'd go around and people would see a Frisian for the first time, would you have to explain what they are or what they can do? What was it? What was that like?
Well, I can explain even in my own situation. You know,
yes,
there was a horseshoer right here locally who's a good friend of my dad's, and I happened to be home. I was off going to rodeos and things, but I happened to be home, and he said, "Clay, you ought to come with me. I got to show you some of these horses. You've never seen anything like them in your life." Now, I have grown up with horses. I have seen every breed, every crossbreed. I didn't think there was a horse alive that that or something that looked close. You're not going to surprise me, I thought. So we go to it was at a dairy, and the dairyman had built this barn for him, very Dutch style, and big sliding doors you go in. And it was in the middle of the hot summer. And we came in and we opened those sliding doors. It was dark in there. And there was a faint light, but you could hear these chains going because the horses had a block that ran through a ring, and then a chain come up and snapped them into these tie stalls to where they could move back and forth, but the thing would kind of, small, very little block, and you could hear them rattling around in there. And then I walked behind him, and it's just like, well, I'll be damned. I've never seen anything like this in my life. They were light horse size, they're not draft horse size, they were European size,
right?
Jet black, full manes and tails, and every one of them looked identical. It was a beautiful sight. It was just a beautiful sight. I'll never forget it. And so then after that, when I would, and I was shocked. I was so surprised. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Well, anyway, after I got to training him and we went off and did events, knowledgeable horse people, not people I knew who were knowledgeable horse people, would walk up and go, "My word, what is that? What kind of horse is that?" And then you'd tell the story. And then it went through that phase, and to where very knowledgeable horse people, they just turn their heads, like, look at that. So and that's what a Frisian does. Frisian horses do that. They make people look. Yeah. And when you see the more of them, the better. We always showed them in 4s or 6s or something like that. Yeah. And they marching in unison and their manes and tails. It was very striking. And so after a while, after a couple years went by, people would say, walk up to me and say, instead of, hey, what is that? They say, is that a Frisian? And I go, yeah, that's a Frisian, And then pretty soon it got to, hey, come over here and look at these Frisians, So,
That's why I said at the beginning, you're a pioneer.
I was involved in all of the association, early meetings for the associations, and all of the planning of horse events that we had to do in those days. We had to plan, okay, what are we going to do? Or are we going to, we can't be in the draft horses, we're going to be in the light driving classes, and deciding what kind of end of the year awards, and all of those things you just started from scratch with, So
I love it.
That was a lot of fun.
I love it because it's a horse, and then you're creating a business model. Kentucky Horse Park starts with a horse, and you create a business model.
Yeah, we did. One of the nice things is they're still affiliated to the old association in Friesland, where in the Netherlands, where inspectors come from the Netherlands to, it's European style, where they look at that foal while it's by its mother's side, and then they give it a grade, and they grade it from foal, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and then they give it a grade each year. And then you can't just have a stallion and say, I'm going to stand this stallion and stay in the books. You have to have permission from the association, or not permission. Your horse has got to be designated as a breeding stallion.
Wow.
So
very
it was
controlled.
very complicated.
Very controlled. Yeah.
It is.
So that's why they're so beautiful.
Yeah, they are. It's nothing but the best.
Yeah. That's right. So let's transition overseas. And we're going to China now, and let's talk a little bit about that, or Taiwan. Just pick a country,
Okay. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's very important to me.
Okay.
On that topic is when I was going to rodeos, and after college rodeos, I went to as many pro rodeos as I could get around to. I just loved traveling. I loved being able. In those days, we'd pick up the rodeo sports news and say, let's go to New Mexico, or let's go to Wyoming. You just picked a spot, and you and 2 or 3 buddies, off you went.
Right.
Well, a few of the rodeo contractors, we really like. There was a guy out here on the West Coast at the time. His name was Bob Cook. He had a company called RSC, Rodeo Stock Contractors. He had an RSC, was his brand.
Very cool.
And we were 2 or 3 of us were loyal to him to no end. He was, he was a Ben. He's kind of like a Ben Johnson character,
wow.
Just
Cowboys,
strong,
Cowboy.
Strong Cowboys, Cowboy. And you wanted to do right. If he told you, you didn't have to. He didn't have to tell you twice. If you understood him and you were part of his crew, you just did what he wanted. You got after it, Wow. So I was proud to be part of that team. And he did rodeos all over the United States, but then he ended up taking the first show to Taiwan, which was a rodeo show where they would do 3 riders in each event. And the very first one, there were only 8 cowboys that did 3 in each event, in all events.
Wow.
So I roped calves, I team roped, I'd get on a bull once in a while, I'd rode saddle broncs, I picked up, everybody did a bunch of things.
Right.
And
right.
so and we were like gladiators. We would do 3 shows a day. And
that's tough. And this
was tough. And it was hard on a lot of people. It was hard on a lot of people. I think about towards the last couple of weeks, there were 8 of us, and 4 of them were just like, hey, we're ready just to go home, And the other 4 of us said, hey, let them go. Let us have their money.
Yeah.
Bob says, oh no, that's not going to happen. Everybody's getting out there, So
yeah.
No, it was a hard, tough experience. But Bob, he did other events like we did 2 events in Japan, another event in Belgium, and then later on I did shows myself in China, but where they were Wild West shows. But as we progressed, like the couple of shows we had in Japan, Bob's budget was a little bigger. We had like 20 cowboys, and we all had nice jackets, and we had American rodeo show on them, and really first class all the way, and we got days off, and we didn't have to work every rodeo. Wow. So and then it became, but we were the pioneers, the first guys, the first jump out, and so we did a number of those rodeo shows, and then my dad, who was in the equestrian entertainment as well, got involved with a show in 1986, just before Tiananmen Square in China, and they wanted a Wild West show. And so they had Native Americans, they had stuntmen, they had trick riders, they had gun spinners, and and they brought them there. Well, I had gone over earlier. My only job was to get the stock there. And so, and which is quite a story, getting that stock from here.
I was going to say the only job, but that's a big job.
Oh, it was. Briefly, I'll just say briefly. I mean, we ended up on a barge going up the Pearl River, with the horses on deck. And, it was an amazing, I can tell you more about that, but but anyhow, we had done all these rodeo shows, and by then I was pretty comfortable. I'd done as many shows overseas, and these shows would last all summer long. They would be, you didn't go there for 4 or 5 days. This went on lengthy time. So I ended up working on this show in China for my dad, and they had a Japanese director, and he was organizing, directing the show. And he's a great guy. He was a super guy. He was conscientious. He wanted to produce a good event, but it was difficult for him to communicate, even though he spoke wonderful English, but in order to improvise with some of the participants. And so after a while, some of the guys I knew, they said, maybe you ought to let Clay do this, and so I ended up being the director of it, and I put together a show that was segued everything together, that had a storyline that involved all of the different participants, to where they could, once we did it the first time, it just got better and better and better and better, and we were there all summer long. So by the end of it, it was like a well-oiled machine, because
right.
People would think, what if I did this, or how about if I did that, and so, and all of them were very creative. We had stuntmen that were jumping off 40 feet buildings, landing in foam rubber piles, and they were, thinking, well, what if I when I fall, what if I, and throw in some other little thing, so, the storyline became better. The Chinese people were very interesting. I had done a lot of shows in the Orient, but the Chinese people, they would ride trains for hundreds of miles to come to the show.
Wow.
And they would come they'd be in this show, and they didn't really react like cheering or laughing or, clapping their hands. It was polite, applause. But then after the show, they wouldn't leave. They just, crowds of people were still swarming around the outside of the arena, and they were just peeking over the fence at us, watching us do our chores and stuff.
Wow.
And as one of the interpreters there told me, he said, for so many of these Chinese people, they've all heard of the American cowboy, but it's sort of like a myth. It's to the average Chinese man who's out and working in the world. You don't have magazines that you're reading about them where they see, oh, this cow. Well, maybe they do now, but in those days they didn't. And but they've heard stories, and here we are. It was almost, and I always kind of compare, it's like Mickey Mouse had landed on, in China, and they were all rushing to see Mickey Mouse, who's alive and running around out there. And so we were cowboys, and they came to see that, and I do believe they enjoyed it very much, and because it was packed. We'd sell out every show, and people would ride the train was the way they got there. There was no parking lots. They rode the train, and they walked from the railroad station down to where the arena was.
Wow.
Nobody rode the car. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Just massive people just walking down the street,
Just the effort to get there to watch the show is just so hard to believe.
Thank you for listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Scott will be right back with more. For more information on Scott Knudsen, the Cowboy Entrepreneur, visit us online at cowboyentrepreneur.com.
So why do you think the love of the American cowboy around the world, what do you think it is? Because there's a big draw still around the world.
Oh, I know it. Well, while the American cowboy is a real and true entity, that do stand for a number of principles. There are many good cowboys that are out there that are hardworking every day and living a lifestyle that most people just don't understand. Well, anyway, people have written about that, and they've created almost a myth about that. Right. It really isn't some of these cowboys that are working out in Nevada or something anymore. It's some other thing, that, how that evolves, how stories grow, and it becomes, it's one of the greatest stories in the world, that in the world is the American cowboy. And whatever country I've had the good fortune to performed all over Europe, all over Asia, it's an honor for them to meet a cowboy. Yeah. And I got addicted to that, to thinking, yes, I am a cowboy, but we're going to do our best to give you a good show.
Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Man. Oh my goodness. So what's a funny story? Something maybe behind the scenes that happened in China or one of these other countries that.
Oh, I got the perfect one.
Okay.
In Taiwan. Now remember, we're shorthanded. There's only 8 of us there.
Yeah, getting beat up.
Pardon?
Getting beat up.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we would have to we would move the show every 2 weeks, and we were there like 8 weeks, and so we had to move the show like 3 or 4 times. And the very first time that we moved the show, they would put cowboys to go with the livestock, the trucks that hauled the livestock. And these trucks were like dump trucks, but they took and build like racks on the side with bamboo. And now we've got buffalo in there.
Oh,
and
we've
got bucking bulls in there. But I'll tell you what, they're pretty darn handy with some bamboo. They know they can make something that's, that'll stand up. We never lost an animal on those trucks, but they were dump trucks with sides on them about like that, and then bamboo up the top. And they're kind of like a big flatbed truck. And then the cab was up in front, and we would get in the cab, but after a while, we'd just ride up on top of the cab, because that way we can keep an eye on the stock and ride on top of the truck. And we're just whipping and winding down these roads, riding on top. We saw other people doing it, so hey, right. let's get up on top. And myself and another good friend of mine, we got to the Tom Bona, a good buddy of mine. He and I got to the next location, and we got there, and we got out of the truck. We looked, oh boy, the pins look good. The arena's great. They've got the bucking chutes set up nice, and they did a good job on the, the chutes, the rope and chutes, and the boxes all look good. And, the hay's stacked up nice. Everything's good. There's no loading chutes. And I remember these things are on flatbed trucks, and, they could dumped them. But that wasn't going to work. So we just didn't know what to do. So we just started walking down the street. And now again, like I said earlier, it's something to see a cowboy walking around. And we're in Taiwan, and two cowboys are walking down the street. And we're looking for material to build a load and shoot. Does that not sound crazy?
It's amazing.
That we're just going to walk down the street and find materials to make a load and shoot. Well, we did. We found a couple of big beams, and we hand signaled and communicated, of what we pointed to our truck, and we said, they kind of got the idea that we needed that, that it was important to us. And they got the idea we need to unload them. So after a while, 4 or 5 of them got to where they were on our team we know other guys that got stuff. Pretty soon there's 50 people following us down the street. And we're going from one house to the next, looking in the backyard, and some guy goes in there and tells the story, and he'll shake his head and point down the road someplace else, and we'd walk on down the street. Well, it didn't take us but a couple hours. We I'll tell you what, we built a load and shoot somehow, I don't know how, without a nail, without a screw, without a hammer or anything. We made a load and shoot with side, racks on the side, and stable enough to where we could get them out of there. And
oh my.
Yeah, so that was a story I'll never forget. And my buddy and I, Tom, we laugh about that all the time. Remember when we got off that truck, we had to walk down that street, and I mean, there was a slew of people following us everywhere.
Oh my goodness, they had to see what was going on. But you talk about improvisation, man. That's something else with buffalo and bulls, and I can relate. We didn't build our own, but there's been times when, how are we going to unload? And I couldn't imagine being in Taiwan doing it.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. And, we had to do a lot of those kinds of things. You have to, like for instance, of one of the shows, we had actually ice skaters and circus performers in these indoor shows we were doing in Taiwan. So above the rope and shoots was the skating rink, was above us. You had to go in there, like if you go ride in the box, your head's just this hit low below the ice skating rink. You had to ride on in there, and they didn't really see you. You kind of rode in there, and then you come racing out. So
oh my goodness,
you had to. Things were not set up exactly the way we were accustomed to all the time.
But you found a way.
We found a way. Yeah,
found a way. So let's talk about something else that's really interested in the Queen's Jubilee. So how did you get to do that? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. I'm just going to move my camera just a little bit here because the sun's kind of catching me a little bit there.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, how that worked was during the World Equestrian Games, the rehearsals lasted 2 weeks prior to the opening ceremonies, and it was I think the games were in October, the first week of October, but we were rehearsing the beginning of September. It was very warm, humid in Kentucky at the time, and we were in this giant arena. I don't know if you've ever seen the main arena there at the Kentucky Horse Park, the big stadium. It's giant. And we had been rehearsing, and I'm rehearsing with I had a group of Native Americans there, from the Sioux Indian Reservation. It was a very colorful event, and a lot of cowboys, all kinds of a variety of different types of equestrian entertainment, not always cowboys and Indian stuff, but also, Rosenbach riders who performed circus type performances and things, but a number of things. But in any case, one day while we were rehearsing, a couple of men walk, and you can see them walking because it's a huge arena, and they're walking out to where I'm at with 3 or 4 people kind of huddled out in the middle of this big giant arena. And these 2 guys come up, and they're from England, and they're English, and spoke with an English accent, and they introduced themselves. And then he asked me, would you be interested in putting together a Western segment for the Diamond Jubilee to be held in 2012 at Windsor?
Wow.
I said, well, I'd love to, and we exchanged cards. And I thought to myself, if I never hear from him again, I'm honored that someone would ask me that, wherever it may go from here. The thought that he came and asked was
Very
pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, really cool. And he turned out he was a major. He had a rank of major in the military, but he did a number of Queen's equestrian type events. I can't think of his name offhand, but he's very well known in England. And so later on, it wasn't long. It was a few days after the equestrian games were over, we started exchanging emails, and we started talking about how long now there were 60 countries came to Windsor at the Windsor Horse Show. Well, they just kind of hyped that up big time. 60 different countries came in with their horses, and each of them did something that they were nationally known for. So, I got to do a Cowboy show, and
how cool is that?
We had stagecoaches, we had Pony Express, we had some great trick ropers, trick riders. We had a good little Western show. And again, they, other than the Native Americans, I'd worked with all these other people like all the time. So they could think like I think,
Right,
and so it was easy for me to, we were directing the show, riding on the air, putting together the show as we were flying over on the airplane. I had a rough idea, but when everybody's sitting on the airplane, it's the first time we were all together, and I'd write something down, pass it up to so-and-so, and we've done a lot of shows riding on the airplane.
Oh my
before
goodness.
you get, say, hey, what do you think about this? And then somebody get back and walk up, no, that's not going to work, or whatever. But anyway, we got to put on that show, and I actually had, I could actually say I had tea with the Queen of England.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I did. They came around and they gave out these very formal, I still have it. It's a beautifully engraved invitation, and to where myself and 3 others could go. And so I selected another cowboy, and then I selected 2 Indian gals that were from Colorado that were just, one was from Colorado and one was from Wyoming, that were just so lovely to work with. They were, because sometimes, doing for instance, and there are among everyone, not everybody, American cowboys won't do something because that's just not the way it's done.
Right.
I know cowboys that are that way, and I respect that very much. But
Sure.
There were certain members of Native Americans that kind of dance is not appropriate for this show. And these gals would go to them and say, but remember back in the turn of the century when President so-and-so Grant showed up and they did that dance for something? Well, yes, they did. And so they were my little ambassadors,
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, they were on my side. They wanted the show to go well, so, they could kind of go in there and figure out what kind of dances they were going to do and how to explain it. So I didn't want anybody to be uncomfortable at all,
Right.
And so if anybody was uncomfortable, we're not doing it,
Yeah.
So, and that was something, and just getting all of their regalia into England, because there are lots of endangered species items that they wear, like an eagle feather. You can't take an eagle feather through customs.
Right.
No
No,
matter,
no.
yeah, not much less one with 40 eagle feathers and big
Yes.
bonnets.
Oh my
Or
goodness.
certain kinds of turtle shells and all these different things. And you had to write down everything like that they were going to bring, and then they had to write how they received it, how long it had been in their family, and things like that. And then we had officials from the English government there to walk them through and get them through it. But it was we were on the phone quite a bit. Getting passports for everybody is not easy.
Oh my goodness. I bet that was something else. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. What a
Yeah.
production. So speaking of production, movies. So I know you've been affiliated with a couple of movies. Would you mind talking a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Sure.
All right.
I just being in the right place at the right time. Well, one thing that I did do was I've been in maybe 10, 12 rose parades, in the rose parade, driving Frisian horse in the rose parade. And a lot of things came from people seeing you in that.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And so I think the first one was Eddie Murphy's Coming to America.
That's so good.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy's Coming to America at the end. And probably nobody says, I never saw any horses in Coming to America. Well, at the end, he marries the beautiful girl from New York, and he brings her, he's getting married in his castle or whatever.
Right.
And he comes out of the castle and he gets in a carriage, which is my carriage and horses that he rode away in. So I actually wasn't in the movie. My horses and carriage were.
Very cool.
And but I did do another movie that I spent a lot of time on, had a great time, a really good time. And it was Kevin Costner did The Postman. The Postman.
Right.
The Postman was a lot of fun. It was filmed in Oregon, and I was living in Oregon at the time. And I don't know, many of your listeners recall the plot, but it was kind of like after the apocalypse or something, and there were good guys and bad guys. And the postman was the one who he was the representative of the government that rode around. Well, I was on the bad guy team. And my horses pulled a cannon.
Oh my goodness.
And I was in the army of the bad guys. And which was a lot of fun, because I had a couple of pretty good broke horses that were, it didn't matter what you threw at them. They were about 14, 15-year-olds, and they'd been around, they'd done stuff, and nothing was gonna get under their skin. But you'd have to gallop across sagebrush and everything. I'd go out and ride and drive around at first, make sure that there's no holes and stuff. Kind of say, oh yeah, I can do this. So I'd ride up and down, drive around. Okay, you got to gallop for half a mile across this thing as hard as they can run, And
yeah.
So that was kind of fun.
Oh man.
And also, I must say, Kevin Costner was a really straight up guy. He was.
Isn't that nice? Yeah.
He was. He had his family with him, and every day he spent time with his kids.
Isn't that great?
And his kids got to play dead guys. So like if there was a battle,
wow.
they got to put on blood and tore up shirt and lay on the side of the hill, but I was very impressed. I really liked Kevin Costner. He was the director, and he'd direct the scenes. And so I got to interact with him quite a bit. And he was so like a regular guy, yeah. And everybody agreed on that. He was fun to work for. Yeah.
Isn't that great? I love his Westerns, man. He's so great at what he does, for sure. He represents a cowboy really well.
Oh, he does. The way he speaks,
Absolutely.
You could see his resolve in his eyes and things. I'm a big fan.
There's a respect for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So biggest influence. So Clay, who would be your biggest influence to get this thing started?
Oh, no doubt my dad. When I grew up, when I was like 6 years old, on a Saturday, 15 kids would come at 8 o'clock for writing lessons.
Wow.
And then 10 o'clock, another 15 kids would come. Then at 1 o'clock, another 15 kids would come. And then at 3 o'clock, another 15 kids would come. And then there's 15 kids that are there all day long. And and those kids went off to do many things. I know one that became a driver of standard breads, and those sulky drivers, racing in the
right.
She became well known as one of those. One of them became Miss Rodeo America. One of them won the juniors at the Rain Cow Horse Association. Every kind of aspect of horsemanship, they went off and did things. And other ones became truck drivers and this and the other thing, but there were hundreds of them. But what my dad did so well is he knew how to have kids become passionate about it, about, I want to be there. I want to be part of that. He had Easter egg hunts with horses. He had Christmas rides. He had Halloween events. He had all these things, year round. And then every summer we went up in the Sierras, up Bass Lake above Fresno, California, up in the Sierras. And he had a summer camp, and there would be 45 kids there. And he would bring in different teachers from different disciplines.
Really?
And they would, and it was a routine where they cleaned stalls, had breakfast, did lessons, had lunch, went swimming, came back, had lessons, cleaned the stalls again. They had a full day of things. And one thing that he did, and I got shuffled through every one of them. I rode jumping horses, and I rode dressage horses. I rode some Rain Cow horses. A little bit of everything, which was, I loved it. It has been a gift to me. It was a gift to me because and he also taught us not to be critical of what someone else is doing. We would go to an event. Okay, it's not my event. I don't know anything about 5-gated horses. Well, we were at a horse show at someplace like Del Mar or something, and there's gated horses going. And instead of, we weren't that wasn't our thing. But my dad said, "Now come over here and pay attention to what they're doing. Watch how he's doing that. See what they're doing." And so I got that ability to, I don't care what they come in on. On a plow horse, whatever it is, there's good ones, there's bad ones, and every kind of a thing, So anyway, I owe that to him. But one of the biggest things though he did was every Saturday, and the kids all week long, Sundays they'd go to church and they had kind of the day off, but 5 days a week they had regular work days. But Saturday morning, my dad put on a Wild West show.
Did he? Oh my!
With little kids, all the little kids, and everybody had their part, and we studied and rehearsed the parts in the evenings after dinner or something. Okay, for the Wild West show, who are going to be the bad guys? Who's going to be the good guys? Who are going to do this? Who's going to do a fall? They taught us how to get shot and fall off a horse, and who's going to be the packer, the mule skinner, who's going to drive the team, who's going to do, all these different things.
Wow.
And he made that fun for kids, and kids loved it. And
absolutely.
And some of those kids were around for 10 years or more. And some of them are my very best friends today.
Isn't that something?
So I got horsemanship. And of course, my mom was, everyone says she was just an angel, but my dad showed us all about horses and how to keep your eyes open and to, be receptive.
Right. Well, they planted the seed and gave you the exposure, and all those other kids. And now you were able to help so many people in our industry and took it around the world. That's what's so amazing.
Yeah, it is. I've had a charmed life. Yeah. I really have.
Well, I think you created it. You said yes
Uh,
when other people might have not.
yeah, right. There was never many times where I said no. If
I
there
don't know how
was,
there could be.
yeah, if somebody had some idea that, boy, I'll tell you what, it doesn't look too good on the outside, but I bet we can fix that idea up and get it done.
Absolutely. We can build our load and shoot.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, Clay,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. It was so much fun, and thank you for what you've done for the industry and being a pioneer and getting the cowboy legacy around the world.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much. I'm humbled. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Adios.
Thank you to all the great sponsors of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. If you or your business is interested in being a sponsor of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, please call our office at 830-992-1786 or visit our website, cowboyentrepreneur.com.
Hi, I'm Scott Knutson, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-cups, any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to cowboyentrepreneur.shop. That's cowboyentrepreneur.shop. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code Cowboy on checkout. Remember, that's promo code Cowboy for an extra 10% off. Just go to cowboyentrepreneur.shop to order your coffee today.